Good morning, America, and all the ships at sea. We are back for the second installment of Book versus Movie. Continuing on with the Hunger Games, we've got Catching Fire, the book, versus Catching Fire, the movie. I did not think through that intro. Catching Fire was so much better than the first movie that I kind of disliked the first movie a little bit more by contrast, because Catching Fire did an absolutely stellar job in adapting the storyline from book to screenplay. A lot of the dialogue was taken straight from the book. A lot of key moments, like, they were changed a little bit to fit with the adaptation, but they captured the spirit and they captured the moment really well. In the book, a very iconic moment is when Katniss is forced to wear what should have been her wedding dress to an interview right before she's sent into the games for the second time. Cinna has engineered the dress in such a way that when she spins, it burns away and turns her into a physical mockingjay. The dress itself looks like the bird. It's this wonderful little middle finger to President Snow. The friendship among the victors was well played. Like, in the book makes it very clear, ever since they won their specific Hunger Games, these people have seen each other every single year. They've all become friends. And the movie does convey that these are people who know each other and they like each other. Really, the casting for this movie overall was just absolutely phenomenal. Everybody knows Finnick Odair, everybody loves Finnick Odair, but everybody else, like Baria with her pointy teeth, was kind of terrifying. It was good. It was all really, really well done. I did have a few beeps. The movie didn't take the time to explain some of those moments, like one of the victors randomly kisses Katniss on the mouth. Joanna Mason famously strips in front of everybody in the elevator with 0% shame. Finnick is introduced when he wanders over and just starts flirting with Katniss. And in the book, Katniss gets annoyed with Peeta for laughing at her over this whole thing. And Peeta explains that everybody's kind of teasing her because they can sense that she's pure and she doesn't really, like, she's never been involved in any kind of sexual shenanigans like these people are pulling on her. And in the book, it gives you a little bit of insight into Katniss. Another thing that I really wish they had brought in is explaining a little bit more about the Quarter Quells. In the movie, Snow announces that it's the 75th Hunger Games. It's going to be super special because it's a Quarter Quell. And then he announces that all the previous victors are going to be the ones reaped. In the book, he explains the first Quarter Quell and the second Quarter Quell, the 25th and 50th anniversaries, respectively. And it brings a new depth of horror, because for the first one, the districts had to vote on who they were going to send into the arena. So, all your neighbors vote you into the arena. It's like, gee, thanks, guys. In the second one, they had to send twice the normal number of tributes to symbolize that in the rebellion, the Capitol killed 2 rebels for every Capitol person who died. And this brings me to the next thing that I wish they would have included. That 50th anniversary was the year that Haymitch won his games. In the first movie, I think they mentioned that he was a victor. And beyond that, the movies do not mention that really ever again. He's presented as their mentor, and that's about it. Whereas the books consistently refer back to the fact that Haymitch fought in the Hunger Games. Haymitch won the Hunger Games. And it brings this new dimension, like you understand his drinking a little better. Yeah, of course he drank. He fought against 47 other people and saw them all die. You see Katniss struggling with nightmares. Peeta talks about his nightmares. Like, you can see the PTSD in everyone else. But they never really talk about why Haymitch drinks, and I wish that they had, because it brings like a level of reality. If you went through something as horrific as the Hunger Games, you'd be pretty traumatized too. There are a few things that the movies just kind of play a little differently than the book, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The rebellion in the books is much more hidden. In the movie, when they go to District 11 on their victory tour, the peacekeepers shoot the old man in front of Katniss and Peeta and don't seem to care whether or not they see it. In the book, they see it purely by accident. Like, the fact that there are uprisings, they're a little shocked when they hear about it, and they're shocked to learn that there's an organized movement. In the movie, they're portrayed as aware that there's rebellion and there's unrest going on, and it's not really a shock that people are trying to overthrow the Capitol. This has the effect of making President Snow look less competent in the movies than he is in the book. Like in the book, he's completely terrifying. He's apparently omniscient, and he's portrayed as much more in control of everything that's going on. He has less of a grasp on what the districts are doing, and I mean, granted, it makes it a little easier to believe that he could be led astray so easily by Plutarch Heavensbee, the head game maker who's actually on the side of the rebellion. The movie also portrays the whole Mockingjay thing differently. In the movie, it is strictly a sign that the rebels use. In the books, the Capitol uses it as a new fashion trend. Katniss wore the Mockingjay pin when she won the Hunger Games, and everybody wants to be like Katniss. In the movie, they give that position over to her classic braid when Snow sees his granddaughter with her hair braided like Katniss's. And she says, like, oh, it's all the fashion now. In the books, all the fashion was the Mockingjay pin, which made it interestingly harder to decipher who was on her side and who wasn't. Like, who wore it as a fashion icon, who wore it to symbolize that they were in fact resisting Snow. Another key difference, and this one goes back to the first movie, is that in the first movie, at the end of it, Peeta loses his leg. He gets a cut on his leg, Katniss ties a tourniquet, and in the end he has to have it amputated, so he has to adjust to wearing an artificial leg. In book 2, this comes back a few times in that it makes him a little bit off balance at key moments. Most notably, when they're running from the poison fog in the arena, Peeta stumbles and trips because of his artificial leg. Katniss, as I recall, stumbles and trips just because she's exhausted and the ground is covered with vines. I would have rather liked it if he'd kept the fake leg. That kind of disability is less common in media. I think it would have been nice to have it as part of the story. Overall, I don't think that it made a deep enough impact on the story to really be, quote unquote, a problem that they left it out. Finally, I think the love triangle was played rather differently in the book than in the movie. The movie pushed Katniss and Gale a lot harder. Like halfway through the movie, I asked Alex, like I was telling Alex about the love triangle in the books, and he said that at that point in the movie, he could buy Katniss and Gale. He couldn't really buy Katniss and Peeta. The book made Katniss and Peeta a lot more realistic, a lot more believable, in that she comes to rely on him. Like after all of her nightmares, she spends the night like huddled up with Peeta. They have this bond over the arena. And yes, things are a little forced between them after she's like, so I was faking that whole love thing for the cameras. And he's like, so I was actually genuinely in love with you. Which, gotta love unrequited pining. But in the book, they have this bond, they have this friendship, and they come together to fake this romance for the camera. Regardless of how they feel about each other, they're like, we have a common goal, we have to work together. So halfway through the book, you're like, you're in love with Peeta a lot more than you think you are. In the books, like her relationship with Gale is more complicated. They've always been best friends, and she's never allowed herself to think of anybody romantically, because who would want to bring a child into the horror that is the Hunger Games world? Like why would you want to have a kid knowing that you may grow up and watch your child be chosen to fight to the death? In the movie, she says that, but she also acts very much in love with Gale, so kind of negates that a little bit. Not until Peeta almost dies in the arena again do you get the sense that maybe Katniss does love him more than she thinks she does. Not sure that I would say that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that may be yet another effect of translating things from book to movie. I do think that in the book, like, it's easier to understand Katniss's struggle overall. Like, she's not really choosing between these two young men. Peeta respects that she's not in a space to look for anything romantic, and he's not pushing that because he understands her trauma in a way that nobody else does. Gale kind of pushes a little bit more for the romance because, life is short, take the sweet things while you can get them, to paraphrase Finnick. The book portrays Katniss's struggle between these two worldviews and these two men better. The movie just kind of reduces it to a love triangle, and to who is she going to go with, the childhood best friend whom she feels secure with, or the new lover who loves her unconditionally and who understands her trauma. As usual, I'm going to say the book was better than the movie. You get a depth of world building and a depth of details that you don't get in the movie. You simply can't get. But I do think Catching Fire was a fantastic adaptation. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. Would definitely watch it again. Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you're looking forward to Mockingjay with me, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.